Tech by Tips.
Hello and welcome to another Tech by Tips video. In today's video we're going to be talking about a Docker container that is very useful, honestly, if you have a lot of applications and you want to control the access to your applications, because this is basically a way that you can start building an infrastructure to manage the users that have access to your applications. So today we're going to be talking about an application named LLDAP, which is a lightweight, self-hosted authentication server that makes managing user accounts across multiple applications a lot easier. If you've ever struggled with LDAP or Active Directory, this is going to be a game changer. First, let's break it down. LDAP is a lightweight directory access protocol, and it's been around for decades as the backbone of identity and access management. But traditionally, LDAP servers like OpenLDAP or Microsoft Active Directory are very complex and heavy to set up. And LLDAP is a modern, simplified implementation of LDAP, so you can think of it as an LDAP but without the headaches, honestly. And it is designed for self-hosters and small teams who want to centralize the authentication without the enterprise level complexity. So if you come to github.com/LLDAP/LLDAP, you'll find the repository here that says this is a light LDAP implementation, and it's version 0.6.2, and it has 158 contributors, so it's a pretty healthy amount of people that have been contributing to this, and it's mainly written in Rust. And if we see down here, it says, it's a simple LDAP implementation for authentication, and basically their documentation is straightforward right here in the same README file. So if we read a little bit more here about the project, we can see that it stands out because it is lightweight and it is easy to set up. It runs in Docker with minimal configuration. It has a web user interface included, and you can manage your users, your groups, and your passwords through that interface. And it allows you also to do password resets via email if you use the built-in SMTP support. So obviously you need an SMTP server to send the emails, but it is a possibility. It is compatible with a bunch of popular apps. So for example, if you want to use Nextcloud, Othelia, Keycloak, and a bunch of other apps, you can use this with that. And it is secure by default because they provide you with LDAP over SSL also for your connections. So it gives you a lot of the benefits of the centralized authentication without the pain of the traditional LDAP implementations. And how does it work? Well, LDAP acts as a single source of truth for the user identities. So instead of creating separate accounts for each application, you connect your apps to LLDAP and they authenticate against it, meaning that one username and password works in all of your applications. And it's declarative, which means that you configure it with a simple TOML file and it just works. No need to memorize complex LDAP filters, syntaxes, or anything like that. And another nice thing about it is that it uses SQLite as its database, so there's no dependency on another database system on the back. But if you want, you can switch it to MySQL, MariaDB, or Postgres, which are SQL type databases. So what I can say, you can use this, for example, self-hosted cloud storage with Nextcloud, or you can use it for login to applications like Mattermost, which we already covered. We can also centralize the authentication for reverse proxies like Othelia or Authentic. So there's a lot of ways that you can use this to manage your users and then connect it to something else that'll make it a lot easier for you to log into other applications. So what are some of the pros and the cons? Okay, the pros are that it's lightweight, it's easy to deploy, it has a user-friendly user interface, and it's very good for small teams. But the cons is obviously you don't get a full LDAP implementation. So if you need enterprise style features, then you're better off with the OpenLDAP or Active Directory. So let's spin this container up. If we read through the documentation, we will find links to how to deploy this application. So if you go into the docs, so in here the docs you have the install, and in here with Docker you have basically the Docker Compose file that you need for this deployment. So we're going to be using this as a base, but I've already made some changes to make sure that it works in a Synology NAS. So let's go ahead and get that ready. The first thing is we're going to go into our NAS. We're going to go into the file station, and where we have our containers, we're going to create a folder for LLDAP, and it has nothing else. And then for the projects, we're going to go here and create another folder for LLDAP, which is going to contain our Docker Compose file. And that's all that we need for the folder structure. So now we should be able to come here into Container Manager, into the projects, and then we can create a new project and we can call it LLDAP. And then for the path, we're going to be looking for that project folder that we just created here. And then we're going to say, I'm going to create a Docker Compose file, which I already have. So let me grab that and put it here. And then we're going to look at it on a bigger screen. So next, don't start, done. And then in here we go into the YAML. And this tells us all that we need to know about the deployment. So as you can see here is one service that we're going to be deploying, which is the container for LLDAP. And the image that we're going to be using is the official image, that is LLDAP/LLDAP. And in here, we're going to be using the stable version. Actually, no, let me change this to latest, because when I was looking at the repository, it did have a latest version, so I'm going to use that. We're going to make the container name be LLDAP. And in here, we define the ports that we need for this application. So for the web user interface, it uses port 17170. So I'm going to expose it also on 17170 on the NAS. Remember, the left side is the NAS, the right side is the container. And then for LDAP, this is the unsecure LDAP port. If you want to use LDAP over SSL, you use this other one. But if you're going to use this, you also need to provide a certificate and a key for that to work. So I have it down here, but I have it commented out. So I'm going to be using the unsecure one for this video. The next thing is the volumes. So we created a folder, and that folder is located here in volume 1 Docker containers LLDAP 4B. So it's here. So that's going to be mounted to the /data inside the container. And in here, since I need to write to this folder here in my NAS, I need to pass a user and the group for that user that has permission to read and write to that folder. And then obviously my time zone, which in my case is America, New York. And then in here you have to put some secrets that you're going to be using to encrypt information. In my case, I'm just going to leave it for the sake of the video as replace with random, which is what was in the official Docker Compose. But obviously you need to change this to something different. It's just a bunch of random letters that you have to put there. So it can be like a passphrase or something like that. And it's the same for all of the different sections here. You create different passphrases and put them there. And then in my case, I'm going to say that this is going to be for my domain techbytips.com. So I would specify that the DC is techbytips and the DC is com. So that's techbytips.com. And the rest of the options I'm going to leave empty because I'm not going to be using the SMTP. If you are going to be using the SMTP, you need to make sure that you pass the appropriate information here. So the port, the server, if you enable it, what type of encryption, the user and the password, all of that, so that then it can send the emails. I'm not going to do that in this video, so I'm just leaving it there so that you can use it if you want later. And if you want to change to another database instead of using SQLite, then you have to use either the MySQL here or the Postgres here to set up the information to connect properly to that database. So that's all when it comes to the Docker Compose file. We should be able now to save this and build it. And it's going to be pulling that image, extracting that image, and building that container for us. The container is pretty small, so that's pretty fast. As you can see, it already finished, and it started here, the container. So let's go to the container here for a second and check how it's doing. It says the container was stopped. Let me see what went here. It says that the permission on the data directory failed. So it says that it cannot, for some reason, work with the directory even though it has the right user. I think it might be because the latest version has some issues. So let's try the other version and see if that fixes this problem here. So let's clean this up. Let's go back into the YAML and then let's use stable and see if that fixes the problem. All right, so now it has started and the container is actually running. So that is indeed something different between the latest version and the stable version. So in this case, then yes, use the stable version. Now it is running, so we are good. Should be no problem at all in here. So let's go into the IP of the NAS and then we're going to go on port 17170 to see the user interface. So if we go here and we refresh, this is the user interface for the application LLDAP. And in here, you have to log in with the user admin, and then the password is something that you can find on the configurations here in the YAML. So if you see, we had something that says LDAP user pass. So this is going to be the password that we're going to be using to log into the portal. So let's put that in there and log in. And now, as you can see, we were able to log in here. And the only user that we currently have is the administrator user. So here you can manage this user. As you can see, you have the name, display name of the user. You can put the first name, last name, mail, stuff like that. But you also have the option here to manage the groups that that user belongs in. And the user ID is admin. So if you want to change the password, you come here, you click here, and that's where you change the password. So now that we're here, we can go back to the very beginning and we can create users here. So we can manage the users directly in here, or we can click here where it says users, which gets us to the same page. If you want to create groups and add users to groups, you can go here into the groups. First, create the group. And once you have the group, then you can add users to the group by going inside the group, and then you will have an option here to look for a user, and then you click add to group. And then the user schema, basically you click here and you can see all the details that are being stored for the users. If you want to create your custom attributes, you can click here where it says create an attribute, and then you can create an extra field that you're going to be adding to your users. And for the groups, it's the same. You have all the information about a group, but if you want to add any extra attributes, you can just click on extra attribute here and create other attributes that you want to put on your different groups. And as you can see, this is very simple, very straightforward. It's just users and groups and nothing else, basically. And then in here, you can see the details about your user, which we saw before, and you log out. So it's very straightforward. Create users, create groups, add users to groups, and then you can use those two features to do authentication and authorization for your other different applications that you want to connect to this. So it's a very straightforward but super powerful, super easy for home labbers and people that just want to get some LDAP going without having to go through all the headaches that involves. So that is it. That's how you get an LLDAP container running in your Synology NAS, and it's very simple. A lightweight, modern take on LDAP that makes centralized authentication accessible to basically everyone. And if you're self-hosting multiple apps, this could save you a ton of time and headaches in managing your users and securing your applications. If you found this helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. Hit the bell also so that you do not miss any uploads that I release. And leave me comments in the comment section below, because as you see, a lot of my videos are based on things that you would like to see. And I try to go and research things so that I can give you a good guide that'll help you get going. And if you're having issues with your applications, I try to help you out also through the comment section. So that's going to be it for this one. I hope you liked it. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.